Buy now, pay later. The small payment trap Canadians miss. I see it on TV. I see financing at Best Buy. And the other day, my wife was shopping at Sephora and said, I will just split it into 4 payments. And I looked at it and thought, yeah, it looks easy. Too easy. I worked in Canadian banking and financial technology for about 20 years. And here is the simple way I look at it. If you cannot afford it, do not buy it. Period. I know that sounds blunt, but sometimes money needs to be simple. If something costs $200, it costs $200. It does not become cheaper because the screen says 4 payments of $50. You are still spending $200. The only thing that changed is how the price was presented to you. And that is exactly what worries me about buy now, pay later trap. It makes an expensive decision feel small. You stop asking, can I afford $200? And you start asking, can I afford $50 today? Those are two completely different questions. And once you start thinking in payments instead of prices, almost anything can start looking affordable. We already do this with cars. People walk into a dealership and ask, what is my monthly payment? Not, what am I actually paying for this car? Now, we are bringing that same thinking into shoes, makeup, clothes, electronics, and everyday shopping. Even Amazon gives you the same option at checkout now. And I have seen where that thinking can lead. In banking, I've seen people carrying more than $100,000 in credit card debt. Think about that. Over $100,000 on credit cards. And they're making minimum payments month after month. They're not necessarily people with no income. They're not necessarily irresponsible people. A lot of the time, debt did not happen overnight. It built slowly. A purchase here, a card there. A balance that did not get paid off. Then another expense comes up. Then another. Eventually, you are not really paying for what you are buying today. You are still paying for things you bought months or even years ago. And that is why I take this stuff seriously. Because debt usually does not walk through the front door saying, hey, I'm going to become a $100,000 problem. It starts small. It looks manageable. It is just $50. It is just one payment. I will deal with it next month. And that thinking can become a habit. Now, I'm not saying that using buy now, pay later for a pair of shoes is going to put you $100,000 in debt. Of course not. That is not the point. The point is the behavior. When we train ourselves to look at payments instead of prices, we make it easier to spend money we have not earned yet. That is debt. Money from tomorrow being spent today. And when you keep doing that, your next paycheck starts arriving already spoken for. Your mortgage or rent comes out. Your car payment comes out. Groceries, insurance, phone bill, credit card. Then $40 for this purchase. $60 for another one. $25 for something else. None of those numbers looks scary by itself. But together, they take away your breathing room. And then people say something I heard many times in banking. I make decent money. I just do not know where it goes. Usually the money did not disappear. It was committed. There is a big difference. That is why my rule is simple. If you need 4 payments to convince yourself that you can afford something, you probably cannot afford it. If paying the full amount today would hurt, pay attention to that feeling. It is telling you something. Maybe wait. Maybe save for it. Maybe decide you do not need it. There is nothing wrong with saying, I cannot afford that right now. I actually think we need to get more comfortable saying that. Because we live in a world where every company is trying to make everything feel affordable. 4 payments, monthly payments, 0%, no money today. But none of that changes the price. And 0% interest does not turn a bad purchase into a good one. You can overspend at 0%. You can buy something you do not need at 0%. You can destroy your monthly budget at 0%. Sometimes interest is not the problem, the spending is the problem. So, here is a question I think everyone should ask before using buy now, pay later. If I had to pay the full price right now, would I still buy it? If the answer is no, stop. That tells you something. Maybe you do not really want the item at its actual price. You want it at the smaller payment. And those are not the same thing. There may be situations where someone has the full cash sitting in the bank and simply chooses to spread their payments. Fine, that is different. But if you need the payment plan because you do not have the money, I would be very careful. Because now you are depending on future income, and life does not always follow the plan. The car breaks, work hours change, the furnace goes, the kids need something. You get a bill you did not expect. That is why breathing room matters. After about 20 years around banking, I think one of the most underrated financial goals is simply having fewer payments. Fewer people taking money from your account every month. Fewer debts. Fewer commitments. More of your paycheck actually belonging to you when it arrives. That is financial breathing room. And I would rather have breathing room than another pair of shoes I'm still paying for. So when my wife says, I will just split it into 4 payments, I understand why. It looks easy. That is exactly the problem. Sometimes spending should feel a little uncomfortable. Sometimes seeing the full $200 price is what makes you stop and ask, do I really need this? That pause is valuable. So the next time you see 4 easy payments, 0% interest, only $50 today, ignore the $50. Look at the full price. That is what you are spending. And if you cannot afford that number, do not buy it. Period. Because the goal is not to find a way to afford everything you want. The goal is to stay in control of your money. Have you ever caught yourself buying something because the monthly payment looked affordable?